It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV. And in this case, we're also adding Star Wars to that category. I think before we start the review, I should say a disclaimer and tell you guys that I was wrong about the Robot Chicken Star Wars series where I gave that thing an A. I think it's more fitting of a B plus. If you want a real A show, then you would look at the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy. That's right, Seth Green. I trolled you and I got you. Because even in this show, they mock how Seth MacFarlane and Seth Green actually are competing with each other over which one did it better, whether it was Robot Chicken or Family Guy, which one was better. But as far as what was truly better, I would have to say the Family Guy one. And personally, I am gonna say something that I never really admitted, but I wasn't a huge Star Wars fan as a kid. I was just like whatever about it. I saw the prequels and they kind of disappointed me at the time. And what really made me fall in love with Star Wars was the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy. I was a massive Family Guy back in the day. I used to love watching the show over and over, new episodes every time on Fox. And then they promoted that they were gonna do a Family Guy Blue Harvest movie, which was gonna be a New Hope all over again. And then I was like, I've never seen A New Hope, so I'm like, okay, but I do like Family Guy, so I watched it, and it was really funny. I actually own the DVD of the Blue Harvest, so when I saw the special features, I saw that there was like a bonus thing that you accidentally click on, and apparently that just happened to be the teaser to something dark side, which was gonna be essentially the Empire Strikes Back, and it was just like a little teaser. They showed that the chicken was gonna be Boba Fett. I was like, oh, I get it. They're gonna mock all three of the original movies, and I first saw the Blue Harvest, and I was really satisfied, and I was like, I gotta see the original, and that's how I fell in love with A New Hope. And then later I watched Empire and I watched Jedi and I said, you know what? Star Wars is actually pretty cool. So good job on that, Seth MacFarlane. I think you brought us that spark that we needed for Star Wars fans. I think initially what he really wanted was for people to just remember the good Star Wars, but at the same time show his comedy and his sense of humor. So essentially all three of these movies start the same way. The family sitting down watching TV, and then the power goes out and Peter just tells the story of Star Wars. The first time he does it, they're just talking about what they want to do, and then Peter Griffin says, "You know what? We're gonna tell a better story, one of the greatest stories of all time, the story of Star Wars. Let's begin with part four." Then the second time, it's like, "Hey, you did a good Star Wars story. Let's do another one." And then the third one, they were just like, "All right, let's just wrap up the trilogy. Power's out. Let's talk about Jedi." Like it was very funny how all three of them had the same spin. They do the crawl, which was at this point jokey. There's even one where like a CG character for no reason pops up. It was very funny. But all three movies basically are the original trilogy, mocking New Hope, Empire, and Jedi, and they do a good job at just making you fall in love with Star Wars again. I really, really enjoyed the casting of who was who. Obviously, since Peter Griffin is telling the story, it's very fitting that he would give himself Han Solo as a character, and then Brian would obviously be Chewbacca. But what I really appreciate is that they finally showed love to Chris. Chris was Luke Skywalker, which basically made him the main character throughout this trilogy. And it was actually kind of nice to see Chris get some love, and it's kind of fitting that it's Seth Green voicing him, knowing that they keep mocking Robot Chicken throughout this. Even in the final battle with Stewie, um, the way he gets to him is by mocking Seth Green. That was very funny. Some characters kind of made no sense being certain characters. So Joe, I knew he was gonna be Jabba the Hutt eventually, but It was very clear that they wanted him in all of these, so they had him as Biggs, as a pilot who's in a wheelchair. He's just making sandwiches for people. Herbert as Obi-Wan was genius. Obviously, a mentor of Chris, someone who adores Chris in the series was made sense. Obviously, since Peter was gonna be Han Solo, it was very obvious that Lois was gonna be Leia. Quagmire and Cleveland as the bots were great. I got to see them in DVD, so if you go to Disney Plus and watch them, you don't get to see the full scenes as they go. They even bleep some stuff out that it annoys me. My favorite gag, the one that made me fall in love with this, was the couch gag where they're in the sewers and then they find a good couch and then Peter's like, you know what? I know we're in a very dangerous mission, but I'm taking this. I'm taking this couch. And even as they're running towards the Millennium Falcon, you see Han and Chewie, or Peter and Brian in this case, run with the couch like, all right, go, 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 go. And then they drive off with the Millennium Falcon, and Peter's just holding on to the Millennium Falcon in space. That was actually really funny. I was cracking up. Since it's Peter telling the stories, it would make sense that he would pick his father-in-law to be Emperor Palpatine. But then again, um, he was already Uncle Owen up to this point, who dies off. I was more thinking that James Woods would have been a great Emperor Palpatine, but I think James Woods was just busy, so he couldn't have made it to the Star Wars trilogy, unfortunately. But I thought James Woods would have been a really good Palpatine because he's nowhere to be in this. I really like that when we get to It's a Trap, they start using characters from American Dad and the Cleveland Show, and they're like, wait, we're already out of characters? Lando being more was a little dumb, and I was like, are they really going to go this route with Lando? And then it actually worked really funny. My favorite part was obviously when Mort is wearing Han's clothes, and then Brian's like, "Why are you wearing Han's clothes? Like seriously, watch the actual movie. Lando starts wearing Han Solo's clothes. It's weird." Which is just true. And then I watched the movie again. I was like, "Yeah, why is he wearing Han Solo's outfit? It makes no sense." Since the Empire Strikes Back ended in a cliffhanger, I like that they also do a cliffhanger for something something Dark Side, but they actually go the Back to the Future route. With that, like I like that they didn't just tackle stuff that Star Wars did. They obviously tackled Back to the Future. They tackled planes, trains, and automobiles, and something about that scene, the mess around scene. I don't know. Seth MacFarlane really loves that scene because he also does it in Ted too. I really like that they made Meg just an irrelevant character again since it's Peter telling the story. I like that each time Meg is just some bland character. I love that in Something Something Dark Side she goes, "How come I don't get any lines in these things?" And then he just goes, "Shut up, Meg," and then takes off. I was just cracking up. I believe that Yoda is the cashier at their local convenience store. Um, that was just kind of random. They really couldn't find someone cool enough to be Yoda, but I was like, fine, they needed somebody. My favorite, hands down, has got to be Stewie as Darth Vader. He was like the perfect one to be Darth Vader. It was a little odd that Peter doesn't know that Stewie is evil, but we just, you know what, just go with it. So I was just like fine with it. Um, I really do appreciate that Seth MacFarlane does do a lot of funny things with Stewie as Darth Vader. He's very vocal. He just cusses up a storm when they're fighting, and he goes, "I have something to tell you. Luke, I am your," spoiler alert, "I am your father." The unmasking was also pretty funny when Chris tries to take off the helmet and then he cracks his neck open and then he just like walks him up, and then when he's a force ghost, he's like, "Fuck you, you murdered me, you ass." That was very funny. I was just cracking up. This was a really well put together show and series. I was a big fan of what they did with this. Seth MacFarlane was kind of what brought me into like nostalgia. Like honestly, if I didn't watch Family Guy, half of the stuff that I know and love today wouldn't happen because of Family Guy. He really loves a lot of nostalgia. They even joke about it at the very end of It's a Trap, where he's like, they talk about how Seth MacFarlane is overrated. Brian, Stewie, and Peter are defending him, and then Lois like, "Yeah, okay, we get it. You like nostalgia." So it was really cool that Seth Green and Seth MacFarlane really do tackle each other on this. They're like very open about their criticisms that they've been getting for years. So I really like that. That was actually some of the funnier parts of it, even like more funnier than the actual story of the Star Wars series, because I feel like what really got me excited is to actually see this play out the way it did, seeing the original trilogy in the style of Family Guy. I thought it was really great, and I had a lot of fun. Um, Even when they have that part where they do the like that was also great. They go into classic gags of Family Guy and make fun of some good stuff. Unfortunately, we never got the prequels. There was talks that they were gonna do them, and it would have been fitting to do the prequel trilogy when they announced that Episode 7 was on the way. Unfortunately, Disney being bought by Fox led to some conflicts between Seth MacFarlane and Disney, and unfortunately, to this day, Seth MacFarlane is no longer writing for Family Guy. Instead, he's focused on other projects, and he still does the voices, thankfully. But you could tell that his passion for Family Guy is done. And I just kind of hope that we at least get a movie of Family Guy, wrapping up everything. I want to see the prequel trilogy. They even joke about that the Cleveland show was going to do him, but thankfully that wasn't the route that they went. That would have been a disaster because the writers for the Cleveland show aren't the same as the ones for Family Guy, even though Cleveland show has some funny stuff, but not hilarious to run it. Personally, I wish The Simpsons tackled the prequels. I think that would have been the right call to do. The Simpsons tackle the prequels. That would have been way much better. If I'm being honest, yeah, I'm a little pissed off that we never got to see anybody mock the prequels the way Family Guy mocked the original trilogy. We got to do it. Someone's got to do it. This really was a lot of fun, and this actually gets an A because this is what brought me into the Star Wars universe and made me become a fan. So, kudos to the people in Family Guy for bringing me into the Star Wars universe. Really, thank you. I really do appreciate it. We're getting close to the end, people. We're gonna do 3 more videos in this Star Wars month, and tomorrow's video will be the follow up to Fallen Order, but that will be Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with that review. And may the Force be with us.